Welcome back to the Tipple, the short pour from Raising the Glass, where we mix quick insights with big ideas. And today I am joined by someone who lives and breathes one of the fastest growing movements in drinks, Denise Hamilton-Mace from Low No Drinker. Now, more and more of us are reaching for no and low. But why? Is it health? Is it balance? Is it taste? Or is it simply better choices? More available for more people today. Denise talks to experts every day about this, so she is the perfect person to help us unpick some of this story. So welcome, Denise.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
I am genuinely so excited to be having this conversation with you. We had a little bit of a conversation previously, and I think I said to you at the time, I wish I'd hit record on that conversation. You shared some of your journey with me, but it would be great if you could share a little bit about how you came to be so involved in the low and no world.
Absolutely. So I'll try and keep it brief. Basically, I come from a 24-year background in hospitality. So I worked in pubs and bars and restaurants and all that sort of jazz. During the pandemic, those years, I happened to be on maternity leave with kid number 2, and I was made redundant at the time. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I knew I didn't want to go back into hospitality because I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and it just wasn't a good mix to start again in that area. And so I took some time out to sort of figure out what I was going to do. And I started looking after myself a little bit better. I eliminated a lot of the things that didn't agree with me. And then all I was left with was alcohol. And what I found was that a few days after having a drink, and I don't mean like a big blowout night out, because we all know that you feel terrible after those, but just after having a few drinks, like 2 or 3 glasses of wine or something, and don't forget, I've drunk every single day for 24 years, I realized that I was still feeling really foggy. I was moody. I was snappy. I've written about the incident with my son where I just snapped at him. He was only, sort of 2 years old and jabbering away. And it was because this alcohol was just sitting in my system and it was making me feel subpar. And so I decided to start investigating having less and trying different drinks. And what I found was that a lot of the information I was trying to find about drinking differently came with the caveat that if you're looking at alcohol-free drinks, maybe you might have a quote-unquote problem with alcohol. And that just wasn't the case for me. I just wanted to have different options for when I felt like it would serve me better. And so I figured, well, if I'm looking for this, then there must be other people out there that want this information too. So I'm going to try and help them find it. And that was it, really. That's what set me off on this path.
So you've got the magazine, you've got the podcast. You are a great resource for anybody, I suppose, doing what you did. What is there available? Maybe finding out a little bit about why and how it's affecting them. And you talk very much about not being an expert, but having a wealth of access to resources.
Yeah.
But I would imagine if I rewound, if it was in COVID, we're talking 5 years ago, how did you find the availability of great non-alcoholic alternatives? Because I know I get really frustrated when I go into a bar and the option is, do I want a lime and soda, or if I'm really, really lucky, an elderflower and soda?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely changed and it's improved. And we're talking about when I started a few years ago. If you look back to so maybe 10 years ago, when this movement actually sort of is considered to have started around about the time when Ben Branson launched Seedlip. That's he's considered the godfather, the pioneer of the category. When he did it, there was very little available. Fast forward 5 years and there was quite a good selection. Now, you're spoilt for choice. And it's really exciting because it is growing every single day. But I always like to caveat that with saying that this is a category. It's a new category, and some of it is absolutely amazing, and some of it's crap. But that's just the way it goes. But I like to be honest with people about this and say, look, I'm not pretending that all alcohol-free drinks are wonderful. Yeah. But also, there's nothing where all of it is amazing. There are some terrible whiskeys out there. There are some terrible wines out there. There are some terrible, pizzas and shoes. And so it's getting better. There's more stuff out there. It's found in more places. In terms of what you can find when you go into your pub, that needs to get a lot better. That needs to get so much better. There are some venues that are working really hard on it. They're working with brands. They're working with consultants. And there are some who are just holding on to dear life to this, look, it's just a fad, we don't need to do it. But I think they'll all need to start stepping up their game if we want to help to save this pub industry, this hospitality industry, which I think is so important. But it needs to serve people where they are now. And that means giving them quality adult alcohol-free options for the times when they want to drink differently.
And I suppose it's ultimately about choice. And I do like that, how you phrase that, whatever industry you're buying into, it's not all perfect. But if you can have that open mindset, I think sometimes the challenge with no and low is if the first one you try doesn't deliver, that's your perception of, well, see, I knew it wasn't going to be good. So yes. I guess we need to get people to have that open mindset of find something you like in the same way you would try a few different wines or you would try a few different beers. There is more choice out there than ever before.
Absolutely. I give a couple of examples with this. And the first one is if you go to a restaurant, for example, and you order, let's say, a burger, and it's not a very good burger. Does that mean that you then turn around and say, well, that's it, I'm never having burgers ever again? Or do you go, right, well, I'm not having that burger from that restaurant, I'm going to try something else? And the other example I give is a conversation I had with a lady once who said, oh, I've tried a couple of alcohol-free wines and I didn't like them. And I said, okay, well, what's your favorite full-strength wine? I think she said something like a Sauvignon Blanc. And I said, okay, great. How many glasses of Sauvignon Blanc did you try before you found the one that you like? Or a Pinot Grigio or any other wine? Everyone talks about Chardonnay, and maybe that's not quite as good. How many did you try before you found the one that was your favorite? How many awful wines did you neck? Because there are some terrible ones out there. You go for a meal, maybe you go for a curry. Everyone knows you can't get a decent wine in an average curry house. There are some that do better. But you tried it, didn't you? And you persevered until you found the one that you like. If people put a similar amount of effort into trying low and no and light alcohol drinks, they would find things that they like. But it might not be on the first or the second or the fifth try. You just got to... It's horses for courses. And there are so many different types of drinks out there now for different types of people and different types of occasions. It's very short-sighted to say, well, I've tried a couple and I didn't like it, so they're all rubbish.
I also think some of it is the category and the way it can almost protect itself or create barriers. So I think there is something in wine that if you try a wine and you don't like it, wine has this sort of aspirational feeling to it that we're often not brave enough to say, I don't like that wine. And I've shared a lot about my imposter syndrome coming into working in the wine industry. If I don't like it, it must be me. Whereas if I don't like that no and low, it must be the category. And again, I think there's a little bit of a switch there of find, as with everything, find what you like, find the bits that make your taste buds tingle. Because back to that point about, and whether it is hospitality or whether it is retail, do you see this moment and this movement as replacing alcohol, or are we starting to see more people using it in balance? We talk a lot about zebra drinking and alternating your drinking. So is it replacement? Is it incremental, more occasions? What are you seeing from the conversations you're having?
I think it is foolish to think that alcohol-free drinks will be replacing alcohol anytime soon. Most certainly not in my lifetime. We are, as a society, alcohol is very much ingrained in everything that we do, from wetting the baby's head to saying farewell to lost loved ones. It is part of every major moment of our lives. And I don't think that is going to change. What is changing is the fact that people are recognizing that perhaps alcohol doesn't always serve them the way that it used to. I particularly speak to a lot of midlifers. I'm 46 years old myself. I speak to a lot of people in my age. That's who I'm trying to help. And recognizing that, for example, we can't drink now at 46 the way that we did at 26.
And I need to stop trying.
It just doesn't work, And so what's happening is that now we're recognizing that it's not necessarily about going sober. This isn't all about people who are in recovery. This is about people who are perhaps drinking and are quote unquote regular drinkers who are looking for opportunities to drink differently when the occasion suits them. So maybe they've got a board meeting in the morning and they need to be clear-headed and focused because they've got to go in and talk about some big numbers. Maybe it's their kid's birthday party on the weekend and they've got to be on point and entertain all the little ones. Maybe they're a bit sporty and they've got a race or a swim or something coming up on the weekend. Whatever it is, there's so many different reasons that people could be looking at drinking differently, that it's more about filling those occasions for those people with options that they can have that serve them then, rather than saying this is a threat to the alcohol industry, because it's not. This is definitely an addition to the way that we socialize. And without it, what we're doing is actually taking away opportunities for people to come together, to connect, to socialize, to be with each other, to get on a level with their peers, because you're made to feel different. You're made to feel ostracized if you want to go to the pub and you want to have a chat. Now, maybe you might not stay there until 10 o'clock, because when people start getting tiddled, you might feel a bit uncomfortable. But you could definitely stay for a few rounds. You could definitely be involved. But you're not going to want to do that if, as you said earlier on, all you've got is a pint of lime and soda.
Yeah, there's only so much of that I can drink. You said earlier about, the benefit that this could be for the hospitality sector, which is really challenged at the minute. And I think you're right. I think it's that bit of how do you bring more people in to those occasions with more choice? I would like as much choice and as much excitement in a no and low alternative as I would if I was ordering a gin and tonic. I want that ritual
Absolutely.
of it. Who is stepping forward in those ways? Who is continuing to create those occasions with drinks?
I mean, I think when we talk about the hospitality industry, I always like to share this stat. So there's a research company called Cam Insight who do a lot of research into consumer behavior and retail and how it all comes together. Their report for the last 2 years has shown the same figure, that hospitality industry, the UK hospitality industry, is leaving a whopping £800 million on the table every year by not having alternatives to people who want to step up from having a tap water when they go into their venues. They say that 1 in 3 adult pub visits now include a non-alcoholic drinking experience. So when we start talking about hospitality, it's the venues that don't want to recognize this are actually putting themselves in a position of loss because they're not recognizing that there's money to be made. And I don't have the figures to hand, but the amount of pubs that are closing this year alone, I know that the percentage of pubs that closed this first quarter of this year was eye-watering. And we need to do something about that. We need to help them to recognize that this could help to save these venues rather than to threaten them. The other thing that I always liked hospitality to recognize is that this isn't about a single drinker coming in, having a single sober drink. This isn't about me going, well, I'm not drinking, so I want to have an alcohol-free beer. This is about the fact that on Wednesday evening, when I come in with my work colleagues, I want to be involved, but I'm not drinking. And I want to be taken care of. Like you said, I want to have the same experience, the same garnish, the same glassware, the same serving quality of service. Because when I've finished my drink and I've gone home, when I'm going out on Saturday night and I need somewhere to go, I'm going to tell my friends who all drink full strength alcohol, who therefore can go anywhere that they want, that actually I'm not drinking, but I know that if I go to this pub, I'm going to be looked after. So can we all go there? And then I'm bringing my 6 or 7 friends with me and spending more money there. And then I've got a birthday party coming up because I'm going to be 50 and I want somewhere to have my party. And I know that I've got a couple of other people that don't drink. Well, I'm going to pick the venue that served me well, that looked after me, that cared about me, that offered me drinks, that I know can look after everybody in my party, so nobody has to feel left out. So I think it's those venues that can recognize that service is more than just what they want to give you, but it's about how you're making your guests feel and what you're giving them and what's going to therefore make them come back again and again. And that there is 24 years of hospitality work.
Brilliant. Well, brilliant. Look, for anybody listening to this is going to take so much away from just that bit alone. You're right, that inclusive nature. And this isn't about just no and low from a health point of view. There are a number of reasons why people are choosing not to drink. And you used a phrase beautifully there around the inclusion of it and making sure that everybody can be involved in that occasion. we know that more and more people, and particularly it does have a slightly younger generation swing, are searching non-alcoholic drinks menus in bars, pubs, restaurants before they make a choice of where they're going to go. So in the way that you would look around what does a menu look like, that's now evolving into the drinks menu. Talking of menus and searches, my favourite stat in my head at the moment is that there are 4 million people in the UK using weight loss injections, which is the same number of vegetarians. So if you think about how we cater for dietary choices and vegetarianism, it gives you an idea of the shift of, I suppose, the seismic consumer shift that we might be seeing through the use of these weight loss injections. Are you starting to see some of that coming through in people's decision making when it comes to maybe moving for health reasons into low and no?
So I did have an interview with somebody who dived deep into this sort of whole Ozempic style lifestyle that people are moving towards. Now, I don't personally have any numbers, but what I can tell you is that these weight loss drugs, weight loss is no longer necessarily what they're always being used for. There's a lot of them now being used in treatment for alcohol use disorder, or even people that just want to cut back. And the reason being is because they stop you from gaining the pleasure from it. So they basically work by you not enjoying the same things that you would have enjoyed from having the drink before, or the food, or whatever it is. Now, the one caveat with that, I mean, there's lots of caveats. I'm not a medical professional at all. But the one thing is that whilst you're on the drug, it will be doing that. But you need to learn to change. You need to change your learned behavior, because otherwise when you come off the drug, you go back to exactly where you were before. Now, in terms of low and no and light alcohol drinks, the impact there is on things like flavor, because people are going to be drinking less. They're going to be deriving less pleasure from it. So they're going to be needing things that are going to be perhaps smaller. There's not going to be as much quantity, but that they can pack real strong flavor profiles in there. So there's a lot of brands out there that do that quite well. Something that comes to mind would be something like Mother Root, which is just like a ginger elixir, which just packs one hell of a punch. So if you like that kind of thing, that would work really well in there. So there's a lot of considerations with that. I think that when it comes to the health aspect, though, there are so many different reasons why people are looking at moderating. So the number is that around 75% of UK adults are actively moderating their intake in some way, shape or form, whether that is zebra striping, so alternating, bookending, where you have alcohol-free at the start and the end and full strength in the middle, or lots of other things like coasting, for example, where you have mid-strength drinks all night long. So the industry, the producers, I think, need to recognize who they want to cater for, because there's too many different factions now. The good thing about alcohol-free is that it's no longer just going, this is a drink for sober people, because it's not. It might be a drink for somebody who's having alcohol-free tonight, but last night they had alcohol full. Or it might be a drink for somebody who, like you said, is on the weight loss drug and needs something that can pack a lot of flavor so they can actually get any enjoyment from it at all. Or it might be, you mentioned age before, the younger generation who are looking at alcohol-free drinks completely differently to my generation. So whereas those in midlife might be looking for drinks that remind them of what they used to like. You want your beer to taste like a beer. You want your wine to taste like a wine, but just not have any booze. The younger generation, who are nicknamed rightly or wrongly the sober curious generation, they haven't grown up drinking the way that we have. So they're not necessarily looking for something that tastes exactly the same. So they might be looking more at functional drinks or alternatives like sparkling teas and kombuchas and that sort of thing. So I think the good news is that it opens up a category to a whole world of different possibilities, of different types of drinks, of different types of serves, for different types of people and different occasions, which is where alcohol's done really well, right? So, there's certain types of drinks that own certain types of occasions, aren't there? Do you ever have a Baileys outside of Christmas? That's the time when it's there. So I think that alcohol-free can do that, or low, no and light can do that. But brands need to recognize who they're serving and what they're serving them for and when they want their drinks to best be experienced so that people can get the most out of them.
So You've used some phrases there, because I'm thinking as we're sort of moving through this, there's going to be lots of founders, lots of challenger brands looking for real hints and tips. So some of the phrases that you've used, alcohol light, alcohol full, no and low, alternatives. What sort of language, if somebody's out there listening thinking I'm going to set up a brand, what sort of language have you found with all of your experiences really resonating at the minute?
Oh, that's a good question. Because actually language comes up quite a bit. So a couple of talks that I've done recently, there was a founder in the audience. We were talking about wine time alternatives at this particular talk. And this chap said, there's a lot of talk here about these drinks being alcohol free and that they're not going to give you a hangover and that they're not going to do this. And, but when do we start talking about what they can do?
Yeah.
The positive language. Now, it's quite interesting because in terms of marketing in general, not just for drinks, negativity works very well for marketing. If you ever speak to any of those sort of online gurus or that sort of say, the best way to get people's attention is to use things like don't and not and never, because that stops people in their tracks and they want to know, what's this? What should I never do? And positive language, although it makes us feel better inside, doesn't attract as much attention. I think the most important thing in this category when it comes to low, no, and light, and some people disagree with me here, is education. And I know that some people say that if you have to educate about your brand or your category, then you've already lost the game. But we have to remember that this is a nascent category. This is new. And there are still lots and lots of people out there who don't understand a lot of the terminology that we use all the time. One of the funniest things I think is this argument over mocktails and whether mocktail is a word that we should use to describe an adult alcohol-free cocktail. And a lot of people are anti it because it suggests it's mocking something, it's a derivative, it's less than, it's not as good as. My argument is, number one, isn't it great that there's so many people talking about it, that we have a reason to be debating about it in the first place? And number two, if that's the language that your ideal customer is using, if they're going into Google or ChatGPT or whatever it is they're searching with, and they're typing alcohol-free mocktails, where do I find mocktails? Where can I buy a mocktail? Do you want to be found? And do you want people to buy your product? Or do you want to stand on your high horse, preach that they should be using other language, make them feel bad, make them think it's their fault that they don't get it, and then they never buy your product? I think it's far more important that we reach people where they are, and then we take them on a journey, and we explain to them, do you know what? Yeah, absolutely. Search alcohol-free mocktails, you'll find our drink. We don't generally use the term mocktail because we prefer to call it an alcohol-free cocktail or a non-alcoholic adult mixed drink. But if that's what works for you, why don't we just focus on what it tastes like, what it does for you, how it makes you feel, how it can enhance your life, and let those things speak for themselves.
I think even looking at searches, Google searches, and seeing what's trending, if you're setting up a brand now, is a great starting point of how are you going to hit as many people. And similarly, my view has always been throughout my career, brands build categories. And one of the reasons why brands build categories before our own brand might follow is because they do have the ability to educate. That is part of the role of lots of different brands in this area. And a lot of different brands are really dialing up taste. I think you talked about Mother Root there. One of my favorite is Petivo at the minute, which again is that probably the closest I've got to that amazing, indulgent taste, which is what I'm looking for on these. It doesn't mean that I sit down and drink glasses of Petivo and soda all the way through the day, because it's still that occasion for me. It's still the reason why I like the taste profile is because it's different from what I am drinking the rest of the time. Yeah. Within this space, what one brand or founder is really inspiring you at the minute and getting you excited?
Oh gosh, that's really hard. That's really hard because I speak to so many, and on the podcast I've interviewed everything from big alcohol to tiny independents just starting up. I can't say that there's one, but I do love the fact that there are so many different founders, and I like it when they share their stories. People buy people, right? So we need to share our stories, we share our inspiration. Yes, we need to share about the product as well. But what I think is fascinating about this space is that one episode, for example, I spoke with a lady called Colette Saffill, and she's the founder of Myth coconut alcohol-free rum style drinks, and also a Goat, which is an energy drink as well. But, her story is a really heartbreaking one. Her mother died of alcoholism when she was young. She herself went through a horrific relationship with alcohol, hasn't touched a drop in 20 years, doesn't want anything to do with alcohol whatsoever, and has made this brand to be something that stands on its own, that she doesn't want to compare to these other drinks. And then right on the other end of the spectrum, I spoke to Luke Hemsley, who runs Wednesday's Domain, which is an alcohol-free wine brand. Now, he still drinks alcohol sometimes, not to sort of state his stance for him. But, he wanted something for those moments when he had things to do, but he wanted wine. He didn't want to miss the taste of wine because he missed it. He liked that flavour. I also like stories of people in this space who, I love the young up-and-comers. There's a lovely chap who runs a brand called Talonmore, which is a Scottish alcohol-free whiskey alternative. And he started his brand when he was in university. He pitched it in a business class, and they said, look, this is a fantastic idea. Let's take it to the next level. And then they ended up giving him funding to launch that. So I think there's so many different types of stories and different journeys that people go on into this space, that the most important thing is to hear founders who are going to share that and to shout about it. Because what consumers want is to see themselves in those brands. They want to know that this is for me because these people get me. And even if I don't like that drink, it lets me know that there's a space that I'm welcome in because there are other people like me in this space.
I think there is a real need to share the stories, share the brands. You're absolutely spot on. For me, this is a category which has so much headroom for growth. And back to what we were talking about earlier, for me, a category that has so many opportunities to drive incremental occasions. This isn't all about substituting. Yeah. This is bringing more people in, more occasions, whether it's socially together, whether it's in the pub and not having that tap water. But for a lot of founders starting out, particularly when you're trying to break into this category where there is still it's not even going to last and it's the bubble will burst soon. Some of the work we're doing with the Mixer at Raising the Glass, which is our trade show event, and Untapped, which is our incubator scheme for underrepresentation in the industry, is trying to do exactly that. We keep hearing there is a challenge with connections, a challenge with, I suppose, investment. We know that only 2% of investment goes to women-founded businesses, even less if you're a person of colour. And community, it can be really lonely. And I think that's why you sometimes see people not telling their story, because for them it's sort of their story and it's how they've got there, but they feel they need to put this professionalism. People buy from people. It's the data tells, story sells for me every time. What made you put that ingredient in that glass to create this amazing product over here? Make me feel that warm and fuzziness that you obviously felt when you created it. And at Raising the Glass, the more we can do to help people get that representation on shelf, whether it's in a restaurant, a bar, or on a retailer shelf, the more of an inclusive category we have for the whole of society.
And I couldn't agree more. And I always say, I used to be really apologetic about my story. I remember the first few times I would speak to people, the first few times I ever went on a podcast, they say, how did you get into this? And I'm like, oh, it wasn't much really. No, I don't have a sobriety story. I just really like the drinks. And then one day I told my story the way I told you earlier on. And the response that I got from that is absolutely astounding, because people were like, oh my God, that's me. And I get emails. Up until yesterday, I got an email from somebody who said, I finally found someone that I can listen to who isn't spouting all this negativity and fear about alcohol, who's just saying they want to do things differently. I feel seen, I feel heard. And that is what your consumer wants. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard. No matter what your position is, there are people out there who connect with it. I spoke to Rish from the Pathfinder, which is another one of those really powerful flavors, if you like that, and when we started our conversation, I said, tell me your thoughts about low, no, and light. And his opening statement was, oh, alcohol-free drinks are a bit boring, aren't they? And I was like, okay, this is going to be a great conversation, because he dived in to say what he thought was wrong with the category and what he thought we needed to do better with the category, and then what the Pathfinder are trying to do. Now, some people, when I shared that, clip were like, well, that's not really positive, is it? And some people were like, absolutely, and this is what we can do, and this is what we can change, and this is what needs to get better. So I think whatever your story is, whatever your passion, whatever your drive, share that. You will find people that connect with you. None of us are so unique and individual that there's no one out there that will connect with the journey that we're on and want to come with us on that as well.
Denise, thank you so much for sharing your journey and sharing, as I say, a wealth of information. I think this category is amazing. It's exciting. It is relevant for so many people, but it's also people like you who are proudly sharing the potential of it that is helping making it more relevant and more acceptable. And I think to your point in that bit around, almost apologetically alcohol free, we need to create space for people to go, look, this is just my choice. I don't have to explain it, but B, if I am explaining it, there doesn't have to be a big driver behind it. It's just my choice in this moment right now.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being part of the Tipple today. We will put links into our show notes, but if you want to direct anybody to find out a little bit more, where can they go?
I would say that the best place is, as you're on a podcast, once you finish listening to this fabulous show, is to just search in Mindful Drinking and Moderation in Midlife. That is the name of my podcast, or search Low No Drinker online and it will take you to any of my platforms. And thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting.
It's been great. And I love that little segue from podcast to podcast. Here's to raising more glasses.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Denise. If you are building in the space or you're just curious about where drinks are heading, join us at Raising the Glass. Stay in contact with us. But until next time, this was the Tipple. Thank you.